The Arizona sun blazed over Interstate 10, a merciless tyrant scorching the desert 30 miles west of Tucson. Its heat pressed down at 115 degrees Fahrenheit, turning the asphalt into a shimmering mirage. Colonel Maya Torres, a 38-year-old Latina with a lean, battle-hardened frame and eyes sharpened by 2 decades in the Arizona National Guard, gripped the wheel of her dusty Jeep. Her pressed camouflage uniform clung to her sweat-slick skin, the Silver Eagle insignia on her collar glinting faintly despite the long drive from a command briefing in Phoenix. The air conditioning wheezed against the furnace outside, and the radio crackled with a faint mariachi tune, a small reprieve after 3 days of strategizing troop deployments. Her rearview mirror flickered. A patrol car, white with a red stripe, loomed half a mile back, headlights off, but its presence a silent threat. Maya checked her speed. 63 miles per hour in a 65 zone. Legal, precise. Yet her gut tightened, a reflex forged from years of stops where her brown skin outshouted her rank. She flicked on her blinker, easing onto the gravel shoulder, tires crunching as she squared her shoulders, hands at 10 and 2 instinct honed by commanding soldiers and navigating a world that often saw her heritage before her authority. The patrol car parked tight behind her, engine snarling. Out stepped Officer Trent Maddox, a stocky man in his early 40s, his sunburned face carved with lines of unchecked power. His uniform was crisp, badge gleaming like a taunt, but his swagger carried the arrogance of a man who ruled this stretch of road. He adjusted his belt, heavy with a holstered Glock, and ambled to her window, boots kicking up dust. He tapped the glass with a knuckle sharp, impatient. Maya lowered it, her expression neutral, voice steady as steel. "Good afternoon, officer. How can I assist you?" Maddox leaned in, his breath sour with tobacco, gray eyes raking her over like she was an intruder. "License and registration," he snapped, his tone clipped, a challenge lurking beneath. She nodded, reaching slowly for the glove box, every move deliberate to deny him an excuse. Her fingers brushed her military ID, Colonel Maya Torres, Arizona National Guard, but she opted for her civilian driver's license, pairing it with the Jeep's papers. She handed them over, palms up, non-threatening. "Here you go." He snatched them, flipping through with a sneer that deepened as he read. Maya Torres, Tucson, Arizona. "City girl, huh?" he muttered, loud enough to sting. "You folks always think you can tear through my county." The "you folks" landed like a slap, venom dripping, and Maya's jaw tightened. She was a colonel, not a rookie she'd faced worse than this petty tyrant in a badge. "Officer, may I ask why you pulled me over?" she said, her voice calm but threaded with command. Maddox huffed, swinging his flashlight up to jab a beam into her eyes. She squinted but held firm. "Speeding," he grunted, smug and rehearsed. "Clocked you at 75. Where are you headed in such a rush?" She knew he was lying. Her speed hadn't topped 65, but she held her fire. "I'm returning home from a command briefing in Phoenix," she replied, clipped but polite. "I didn't realize I was over the limit." His gaze narrowed, dissecting her composure like it insulted him. He swept the light into the back seat, probing shadows. "Fancy Jeep for a desert run," he said, suspicion thick. "Got anything I should know about? Drugs? Guns?" Her pulse quickened, but her face remained stone. "No, officer, just my gear and briefing notes." His eyes flicked to her uniform, the Silver Eagle catching the light, and for a split second, he paused, registering something. Then the sneer returned, sharper. "What's a broad like you do in that outfit? Playing general?" The racism and sexism were blatant casual venom, and Maya felt heat flare in her chest. She wasn't just a driver to him, she was prey. "I'm a colonel in the Arizona National Guard," she said, words crisp, each syllable a quiet defiance. "Commanding officer of a logistics battalion out of Tucson." She hoped it'd shift the dynamic, force him to rethink his game. But Maddox laughed, a harsh bark echoing off the Jeep's frame. "Sure you are, princess. And I'm Eisenhower. Nice costume." He twirled her license like a prize, amusement darkening into menace. "Step out. We're gonna talk about where you really got this ride." Maya simmered, the desert heat seeping through the open window. This wasn't a ticket stop. It was a personal vendetta, fueled by her skin and her stars. She watched him strut back to his cruiser, her mind racing. She'd faced insurgents, led troops through chaos, but Maddox had a reckless edge, dangerous, unhinged. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows, and she braced herself. She had her wits, her training, and a phone in her pocket. Whatever he threw next, she'd be ready. But ready might not suffice. The desert darkened, the horizon swallowing daylight's last threads. Maya stood beside her Jeep, hands on the hood as Maddox ordered, the metal still warm against her palms. He circled her, boots crunching gravel, flashlight swinging like a weapon. "Turn around!" he barked, voice jagged. "Hands where I can see 'em." She complied, planting her palms flat, staring at the shimmering asphalt ahead. His shadow loomed as he patted her down, rough, invasive, knuckles grinding her ribs, palms scraping her hips. "Keep still, you uppity wetback," he growled, the slurs spilling out, cruel and casual. Her uniform, her eagle, meant nothing. He was shredding her dignity, hunting for an excuse he'd already invented. "You think you're some big shot, huh?" he muttered, breath hot against her ear, as he yanked her jacket open, buttons straining. "Out here, you're just another nobody I get to break." He finished the frisk, finding only her keys and a pen, and stepped back, unsatisfied. "Stay there," he snapped, ripping open the Jeep's door. He dove in, a whirlwind of spite, flipping the console, scattering maps and a granola bar, then tearing into her duffel bag. Her spare uniform spilled out, the colonel's eagle glinting, and he snorted, tossing it aside. A polished case holding her service medals earned through combat and command clattered to the floorboard, and he stomped it under his boot. "Fancy toys," he mocked, ripping the lining, searching for ghosts that didn't exist. The Jeep rocked as he slammed the trunk shut, empty-handed, frustration boiling into a snarl. He stalked back, flashlight blinding her again. "Clean, huh?" "Too clean," he said, voice tight with paranoia. "Folks like you always got something drugs, cash. I'll find it." Maya met his gaze through the glare, her calm cracking to let steel shine through. "Officer, I've told you who I am, Colonel Maya Torres, National Guard. There's nothing illegal here. You're wasting your time." He erupted, stepping so close his spit flecked her cheek. "Wasting my time? You don't tell me what to do, girl. I say jump, you jump, or I make you." He grabbed her arm, wrenching it behind her back. Pain seared her shoulder, but she stifled a grunt. He wasn't cuffing her yet, just twisting, daring her to resist. "Think that eagle scares me?" he hissed, grip tightening. "Out here, I'm the king, and you're nothing but a trespasser." The racism was raw now, a blade unsheathed, and Maya felt its weight. She could break his hold. Her training screamed it, but she knew the stakes. A Latina colonel fighting a white cop in the desert. Not yet. He shoved her against the Jeep, her hip banging the door. "Don't move," he growled, circling back to his cruiser, muttering into his radio, low, conspiratorial. Maya straightened, breath ragged but controlled. He'd found nothing, but he wasn't done. Her phone sat in her pocket, a lifeline he hadn't spotted. Her fingers itched to reach for it, but not while he watched. The desert night closed in, stars piercing the void, and Maddox's voice drifted back, sharp with intent. "We're not finished, Colonel," he called, the title a mockery dripping with bile. He was planning something, a storm brewing in the stillness. Whatever came next would be uglier. The Arizona night gripped tight, the patrol car's lights pulsing harsh against the dark. Maya stood rigid, hands still on the Jeep's hood, as Maddox emerged from his cruiser, hunched over his radio. His voice rose, smug. "Yeah, she's clean, but I know she's hiding something." Her gut churned he was weaving a trap. She slipped her phone out, keeping it low, movements masked by the Jeep's bulk. Maddox was too busy gloating to notice. She punched in a number etched in her memory. Brigadier General Luis Rivera, her commanding officer in Tucson. He answered on the first ring, voice gruff but steady. "Torres, what's the situation?" "General," she whispered, eyes on Maddox. "I'm on Interstate 10, 30 miles west of Tucson, pulled over by a cop named Trent Maddox, Pima County PD. He's harassing me. Search my Jeep without cause, rough me up. Racial. I need intervention." Rivera's tone turned to iron. "Stay calm, Colonel. Put me on speaker. Let's bury this punk." Maya tapped the button, raising the phone as Maddox swung his door open, swaggering back with a falter when Rivera's voice thundered out. "Officer Trent Maddox, Pima County Police. This is Brigadier General Luis Rivera, Arizona National Guard, Tucson Command." You're detaining Colonel Maya Torres, a senior officer under my authority on official travel. Identify yourself, and justify this stop now." Maddox froze, flashlight dropping, its beam slashing wild across the gravel. His sunburned face paled under the cruiser's lights, sweat beading on his lip. For a moment, Maya thought he'd crumble, his bravado fracturing, but his jaw set, and he stepped closer, voice rising over the desert wind. "This ain't your turf, old man. She's mine, speeding suspicious. I don't answer to some desk jockey." Rivera's reply was cold steel. "Wrong, officer. Colonel Torres' status makes her a state and federal asset under my command. You're interfering with guard personnel on duty. Give me your badge number, or I escalate this to your sheriff, state patrol, and the Pentagon. Choose wisely." Maddox's throat bobbed, fingers twitching toward his radio. "Badge 312, he muttered, weak, unraveling. Maya felt triumph flare. She had him cornered. 312, Rivera repeated, damning. "Stand down, Maddox. Release her documents, end this stop, and step away from her vehicle. You've got no probable cause your search was illegal. We've got her statement. Pima County's about to face hell if you don't comply." Maddox's eyes narrowed, fury flashing, but he was trapped. He fumbled her license and registration from his pocket, tossing them onto the hood with a slap. "You think you're untouchable, huh?" He spat at Maya, low enough Rivera might miss it. "Calling your brass don't change nothing out here." But he retreated, boots dragging, swagger deflated as he slammed his cruiser door. Maya exhaled, snagging her papers, fingers trembling slightly as she tucked them into her jacket. "Thank you, General," she said, voice steady again. "I'm clear to go." Rivera's reply was clipped, protective. "Drive safe, Colonel. I'm logging this. Pima's on notice. Call if he tries anything else." The line clicked off, and Maya pocketed the phone, adrenaline easing into relief. She climbed into her Jeep, the torn interior a bitter scar of Maddox's spite, and started the engine. Dust swirled as she pulled onto Interstate 10, the night stretching ahead, Tucson's glow on the horizon. She'd won this round, Maddox crushed by a single call. Or so she thought. As her taillights faded, Maddox's radio crackled inside his cruiser. He picked up the mic, knuckles white, voice a low growl. "This isn't over, Colonel," he said, not to her but to someone on the other end. A gruff voice answered, "We'll take care of it." The desert night knew what Maya didn't. Maddox wasn't alone. His pride was shattered, his malice festering, and allies lurked in the shadows. She drove away victorious for now, blind to the storm brewing behind her. The Jeep hummed along Interstate 10, the desert wind whistling through the cracked window. Maya gripped the wheel tighter, Rivera's voice echoing her shield, her rank a weapon. It had worked. Maddox was a speck in her rear view, his power play snuffed out. Tucson glimmered 20 miles ahead, a promise of safety. Then her side mirror flared headlights, sudden and fierce, tearing through the dark. A vehicle closed fast, no sirens, just raw speed. Her pulse surged, instincts razor sharp. She squinted, catching the black pickup's snarling grill as it roared up behind her. Maddox. Her breath caught. He was back, rules discarded. Before she could react, the pickup slammed her bumper, a bone-jarring jolt snapping her forward. The Jeep fishtailed, tires screaming, and Maya wrestled the wheel, training kicking in. "Bastard!" she muttered, teeth gritted, but the pickup rammed again, harder. Metal ground metal, and the Jeep veered off the highway into a dry wash, gravel spraying. It slammed against a boulder, hood crumpling with a sickening crunch. Maya's head jerked, pain flaring in her neck, but she was alive, alert. Dust choked the air as she fumbled for her phone. The pickup screeched to a halt 20 yards up, doors flying open. Maddox stormed out, face twisted with rage, but he wasn't alone. Officer Kyle Vance emerged a hulking brute with a shaved head, a Confederate flag tattoo curling up his arm, shotgun gleaming in his hands. Maya's stomach dropped. This wasn't a stop. It was a kill zone. "Thought you'd run to your general, huh?" Maddox bellowed, voice slicing the night. "He can't save you out here, spick." The slur cracked like a lash, and Vance laughed, guttural, as they closed in. Maya kicked her door open, stumbling onto the uneven ground, her uniform clinging to her sweat-slick skin. Bruised, shaken, she stood defiant. "Back off, Maddox," she warned, voice steady despite the odds. "You're burying yourself." He smirked, unholstering cuffs, steel glinting. Vance lunged, massive hands pinning her arms with a force that made her shoulder scream. She twisted, reflexes surging, but he slammed her face first into the dirt, gravel biting her cheek. Blood welled as Maddox's boots thudded closer, shadow looming. "You're mine now," he snarled, snapping the cuffs tight. "Resisting arrest, that's what this is. Should have stayed in your place." Her mind raced 2 against 1, no phone, no backup. She'd led battalions, faced ambushes, but this was personal, a vendetta carved from her skin and eagle. Vance held her up, fingers digging into her biceps, and Maddox circled, flashlight now a club. "Guard colonel, huh? Big talk," he spat, swinging it at her knee. Pain exploded, white hot, and Maya gasped, leg buckling. Vance forced her upright, making her take it. "Out here, I'm God," Maddox hissed. "No one's coming for you." Blood trickled down her face, vision blurring, but her resolve held. She was a colonel, not a victim. They dragged her toward the pickup, boots scraping, Maddox muttering about teaching her a lesson as Vance chuckled, tattoo flexing. The trunk popped open, a black abyss waiting, and Maddox shoved her toward it. "No fancy brass here," he said, grin feral. "Just you and us." Her training surged, stay alive, stay sharp, wait for the crack. The desert watched, indifferent, as they manhandled her closer. She'd outsmarted him once with a call. Now, Maddox had rewritten the rules, and this was his revenge. The pickup jolted over back roads, shocks groaning as it hauled Maya deeper into the Arizona night, 15 minutes from the wash. She was crammed in the back, wrists aching under tight cuffs, uniform smeared with blood and dirt, knee throbbing. The air stank of sweat and oil, the scratched plexiglass divider caging her in. Maddox drove, hunched forward, while Vance rode shotgun, tapping the dashboard. Their silence crackled Maddox's fury simmering. Vance's glee a low rumble. Tucson was a distant dream. They pulled into a dusty outpost, a squat cinderblock station with a flickering sheriff sign. Vance yanked her out, jerking her upright as her knee buckled. Maddox strode ahead, boots echoing, and shoved her into a dim lobby reeking of mildew and smoke. A deputy lounged behind the counter, wiry with a patchy beard, badge reading Ellis. His eyes lit up with a smirk as Maddox tossed her crumpled license onto the desk. "Resisting arrest on I-10, Maddox said, voice tight with venom. "Speeding, fighting us, real troublemaker." Vance nodded, cracking his neck. "Yeah, she swung at Trent, nearly took his head off." The lie was laughable, but Maya stood tall despite the pain, blood crusting her cheek. "That's a lie," she said, voice steady. "I'm Colonel Maya Torres, National Guard. They assaulted me, ran me off the road. I need a phone call now." Ellis snickered, eyeing her eagle like it was a joke. "Colonel, huh? Sure, darling. You're a disorderly vagrant till I say otherwise." Maddox leaned in, breath hot. "She's full of it, Ellis. Check her story if you want, but she's going in the tank." Ellis shrugged, tapping her license into a clunky computer. "Clean, huh? Don't mean squat," he muttered, scribbling her name as Jane Doe disorderly conduct. Maya's stomach twisted, a rigged system burying her alive. They dragged her down a hall, flickering lights casting shadows, the smell of bleach and urine stinging. A steel door clanged open, revealing a holding cell 8 by 10, concrete walls etched with slurs. "Go back to Mexico," a swastika beside it. She was shoved inside, cuffs biting deeper as Vance slammed her against the wall, shoulder screaming. "Enjoy your stay, Colonel," Maddox sneered, uncuffing her finally. She rubbed her wrists, blood streaking her palms, but the door banged shut before she could speak, lock clicking with finality. Alone, the cell's chill sank into her bones. She paced 3 steps wall to wall, knee pulsing, a rusted bench her only perch, a cracked sink dripping. Her uniform was a wreck, blood drying stiff, her medals lost in the Jeep's ruin. She'd thought her rank would matter, that someone would check, but this outpost was a machine of prejudice, grinding her down. Maddox's tale was absurd, but Ellis bought it, Vance's fists backing it up. Her phone was gone, her voice silenced. She sank onto the bench, wincing, scanning for options. The graffiti mocked her, but she clenched her fists. She was a colonel, 20 years commanding, breaking barriers, and now, nothing. Maddox thought this was her tomb. He didn't know her strength. Hours bled into the night, marked by the sink's drip. Maya sat, mind churning, when footsteps echoed slow, heavy. She tensed, rising despite the pain. A key rattled, and Maddox peered through the bars, smirking, tapping his flashlight, the one that cracked her knee. "Comfy, Colonel?" he taunted. "No guard brass coming tonight. Sleep tight, tomorrow's gonna be fun." He lingered, savoring her silence, then turned away, laughter cutting the dark. She stared after him, resolve hardening. He was wrong, tomorrow wasn't his. Her fingers brushed her uniform's collar, snagging on a safety pin, a relic from adjusting her fatigues in Phoenix. Small, an inch long, but enough. Her pulse quickened. She knelt by the door, probing the lock, a simple pin and tumbler, rusted. She'd picked worse in training. Escape drills under fire. Her hands steadied, bending the pin into a crude pick, and she worked. Click, click, the lock gave after 10 minutes, creaking open an inch. Freedom hit her bleach and dust. She slipped out, boots silent, past Ellis dozing at his desk, coffee mug teetering. A key rack glinted one-tagged Patrol 2. She snagged it, jingle muffled, and darted to a side door marked Garage. Unlocked, sloppy, typical, she slid into a beat-up cruiser, engine coughing to life. She peeled out, tires squealing onto the outpost's empty streets, Tucson 25 miles away. A gas station glowed 5 miles out, neon blinking open 24/7. She pulled in, striding to the counter, a sleepy clerk barely glancing up. "Need your radio," she said, clipped. He shrugged, sliding it over a CB crackling static. She dialed Rivera's line. He answered fast. "Torres, where are you?" Relief flooded her. "Outpost west of Tucson, General. Escaped to sell Maddox, and Vance ran me off the road. Locked me up, fake charges. I'm in a stolen cruiser headed east." Rivera snapped, "Stay on the line. I'm scrambling guard MPs from Tucson ETA 20 minutes. You're a federal asset, Colonel. This ends now." She nodded, hope surging, and thanked the clerk, who stared at her blood-streaked face. Back in the cruiser, the CB hummed with Rivera's plans. Tucson's glow closer. She'd beaten the lock, the cell, the odds. Maddox's reign ended tonight or so. She thought. Headlights flared 5 miles back, a jacked-up pickup tearing through the dark, engine snarling. Maddox and Vance, tipped off by Ellis, waking to the theft. They weren't done rabid, armed, closing fast. Maya's breakout was a defiance of their hate, but it ignited their fury. She floored it, oblivious, the desert bracing for the storm racing up behind her. The cruiser roared down I-10, engine rattling as Maya pushed it to 80 miles per hour, Tucson's skyline teasing 15 miles ahead. The night whipped past, cool air stinging her cut cheek. The CB crackled Rivera's voice steady. "MPS inbound, Colonel. Hold tight." Her chest swelled. She'd outrun Maddox's cell, turned his trap to ash. Then her mirror flared, headlights shrinking the gap, a black pickup snarling closer. Maddox and Vance, shotguns gleaming. Her pulse spiked, adrenaline surging. She couldn't answer Rivera, not with death roaring up behind her. The pickup slammed her bumper, the cruiser fishtailing. She wrestled it straight, but it rammed again, harder, veering her toward a construction zone, barrels and cranes marking a half-built bridge. Vance leaned out, shotgun blasting, shattering her rear window. Glass sliced her neck as she ducked, swerving to dodge a second shot pocking the road. Blood trickled, but she aimed for the zone, barrels scattering as she threaded between cranes. Maddox followed, reckless, tires squealing. She spotted a ramp steep, gravel-strewn, and gunned it, the cruiser climbing fast. The pickup charged after, too heavy, too brash. She faked right, yanked left, skidding on the edge, gravel spraying. Maddox overshot, momentum betraying him, and the pickup plunged off the ramp, flipping in a fireball as it slammed below. Maya braked hard, dust choking the air, staring at the wreckage. Relief crashed in. She grabbed the CB, voice ragged. "Rivera, they chased me, crashed in a construction zone 10 miles out. I'm clear." "Copy that," Rivera crackled. "MPs are 5 minutes out. State troopers too. Sit tight." Sirens wailed, red and blue cresting the horizon. She leaned back, neck bleeding, knees screaming, but alive. Troopers arrived, guns drawn, then lowered as she raised her hands. "Colonel Maya Torres, National Guard," she said, hoarse but firm. MPs rolled in, Humvees grinding to a halt, their captain saluting. "You're safe now, Colonel." She pointed to the wreck. "They didn't stop shot at me. It's over." Troopers dragged Maddox and Vance from the wreckage alive, battered. Maddox's arm hung limp, Vance's leg twisted, their shotguns confiscated, their power extinguished. Maya watched, triumph bitter. She'd beaten them with grit and a call, the MPs flanking her a shield she'd earned. The night was hers, hard won, complete. Or so she thought. As Maddox was hauled past, blood streaking his face, he rasped, "My uncle runs this county. You're finished." The words slithered through her relief, souring it. Vance glared, silent but venomous. The captain muttered about local corruption, but Maya's mind spun. Uncle, county. Her victory cracked, a larger shadow loomed beyond this outpost, and her escape had painted a target she couldn't yet see. 3 days later, Maya sat in a Tucson guard office, back in crisp fatigues, her silver eagle gleaming. General Rivera slid a commendation across the desk, silver star pending, and she nodded, pride swelling. "You're cleared, Torres," he said. "Maddox and Vance are indicted assault, corruption, you're a legend." News buzzed on a TV. Colonel thwarts rogue cops. She'd outrun their pickup, escaped their cell, faced their guns with a pin and her will. Rivera's call, the MP's rifle she'd turned the tide. A courier interrupted, dropping an envelope. Torres, no return address. She tore it open. A USB and a note. "Watch me." Dread coiled as she plugged it into Rivera's laptop. Grainy footage loaded the construction zone, her cruiser weaving, the pickup crashing, but her voice, warped, screamed, "I'll kill you pigs!" A lie stitched into the frames, flipping her fight into madness. Rivera's jaw tightened. Deep fake, someone skilled. The TV blared, Sheriff Dan Maddox, Trent's uncle, free on a technicality, standing on courthouse steps, badge gleaming. "I'm running for county commissioner to protect Pima from rogue soldiers like Maya Torres. Video proves it." The USB's footage flashed, her edited scream a dagger. The crowd cheered, swallowing his lies. Maya's chair scraped back, Rivera barking into a phone. "Get me the Pentagon!" But the weight was hers alone. She'd crushed Maddox and Vance, thought the cuffs were the end. This twist was their venom, reborn a lie louder than truth. A system bending back. Her fight wasn't over. It had grown uglier, bigger, and she'd face it with the same resolve that broke their cage. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. See you in the next one. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. See you in the next one.